My name is Yawei Liu. I was here before. So I'm going to moderate the next session. It's called Reflections, U.S.-China Wartime Cooperations and Their Lessons. So we have 5 distinguished speakers. I'm going to call them up to the stage. So the first one is Dr. Robert Kapp. So while he's walking up to the stage, I'll just quickly introduce him. He got his PhD and started teaching at Rice University in Houston, and then he served as president of the U.S.-China Business Council for many years, and now he is a consultant for U.S.-China Education Exchange Trust. Bob, come up. Our second speaker is Dr. Judd Kingsley, a professor from University of Wisconsin at Madison. He's also the professor of Nick Zeller that was here. And one of his students is Daniel Jackson, who wrote one of the most definitive books on the flying tigers. You can check it out. It's actually online from Amazon. Our third speaker is Dr. Wang Chaoguang. Is one of the most prominent historians on U.S.-China war cooperation and recent Chinese history. He recently retired from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and now he is teaching at Sichuan University. So here is Wang Chaoguang. Our next speaker is Dr. Luo Min from Peking University. Both Dr. Wang and Dr. Luo spend a lot of time here in the Bay Area because they go to the Hoover Institution and they copy the archives. For example, Dr. Wang Chaoguang spent a lot of time hand copying the diary of Chiang Kai-shek because to have a better understanding of the wartime U.S.-China relation, you need to go to the primary source. So this is Dr. Luo Min from Beida, Peking University. Our last but not the least speaker who presents a different perspective is Joanna Lei. He's very famous in Taiwan. He was also a former lawmaker, Li Fa Yuan. And so she flew from Taiwan specifically for this discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them to each to speak about 8 to 10 minutes, their view of the war, of U.S.-China interaction during the war. And after all of them present their perspectives, we're going to open the floor to all the audience. So without further ado, maybe Bob, you want to sit there or you want to stand here and speak?
Hi, everybody. I'll say a few words, but I recognize that many people in this room will not hear them. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. You know, I have, in my working life, I have met and welcomed many Chinese leaders, including former President Jiang Zemin. And one of the things that Americans liked about President Jiang Zemin was that he knew a lot about the U.S. And he was famous because he could recite the entire Gettysburg Address by President Abraham Lincoln in English himself. And that made a big impression on Americans. And thinking about what I should say in my 5 minutes today, I was reminded of that Gettysburg Address because Lincoln started by saying 87 years ago. We all Americans know that. But as he got into his very short address, he said that at that time, that America needed to rededicate itself to the ideas that had been basic to the founding of America 87 years before. And as I think about the end of World War II, the end of the heroic Chinese struggle against Japanese aggression starting in 1931 and continuing all the way to 1945, and the end of the, as we see here, the so-called global war against fascism, which involved, of course, the Americans in Asia working with China, but also the Americans in Europe working with the British and the French and so many other allies. The thing I want to leave you with here today is that the struggle against fascism never ends. And we who are older and you who are younger still need to dedicate yourselves and rededicate yourselves to the struggle against these tendencies that used to be called fascism and may again be called fascism in the future, wherever that happens in the world. This is not a struggle that ended forever in 1945. Today, we look at these magnificent displays and we realize how much courage and how much deep suffering the Chinese people displayed and endured during their 14 years of struggle, beginning with Zhou Yaoba and ending with the Japanese surrender in 1945. Some of you in this room are old enough to remember as small children that ending in 1945. Your children may remember what you tell them. Their children, your grandchildren, will not remember so much. Their children, your great-grandchildren, will remember very little. So it's important, I think, for all of us to understand that the struggles that the Americans and the Chinese cooperated on in World War II, they have dimensions that are bigger than that 20-year period. They're bigger than a 50-year period. Those struggles represent a struggle against tyranny and against violence, which must continue into the future. And your great-grandkids and your great-great-grandkids and your great-great-great-grandkids need all to understand that that's what we all face, and that's what is required of all of us. So this exhibition has given me a great deal to think about, and I thank you for coming. And I know each of you in this room has a story that you could come up here and tell of your own life and your father's or your mother's life during the war, as I do, as we all do. But time is passing, and what we have to do is not try to teach everybody forever exactly the details of what happened in 1942 or 1943, the year of my birth, but rather what the basic reasons were and the basic ideals were that need to be preserved and maintained. And that is what this show today and your presence has given me to think about, and I hope you don't mind my sharing those thoughts with you. Thank you.